What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Black Ops 6. And in today's episode, we're finally going to be finishing off the current assault rifles in the game with the AS VAL. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and with this gun, it's going to be a 5 to 7 shot kill depending on the range. And when it comes to headshots, without the CHF barrel, you need 3 headshots mixed in with body shots in the first 2 damage ranges in order to reduce the number of shots to kill, which is not great, and generally speaking, I wouldn't worry about headshots. However, if you put the CHF barrel on, it will reduce the number of headshots needed at all ranges by 1. Then when it comes to our rate of fire, this is by far the fastest in the assault rifle category at 896 rounds per minute. And this means our 5-shot time to kill potential is very competitive at 268 milliseconds. And that will increase up to 402 milliseconds once you get to the 7-shot kill range. But overall, if you keep yourself within the first 2 damage ranges, you're going to have a very competitive time to kill with this gun, even against SMGs up close. And if you do manage to land enough headshots to reduce this down to a 4-shot kill, we will be killing in just 201 milliseconds, which is insanely fast. Or you could also use rapid fire to bump our rate of fire up to 952 rounds per minute, and now we have a 5-shot time to kill at just 252 milliseconds. Which honestly, I don't think is necessary on this gun. The default time to kill is excellent on its own. As for our ranges, unfortunately, the AS VAL has already seen a couple nerfs to this area, so our 5-shot kill range is only 12.7 meters, which is a very short maximum damage range for assault rifles. However, our 6-shot kill range is quite impressive at about 43 meters. Now on top of that, we also have the slowest bullet velocity in the assault rifle category, but it's not really that far off from the rest, so we still get a solid hit scan range at just about 36 meters. And now let's have a look at our barrels, which are very interesting on the AS VAL. The gain twist barrel gives us a 50% boost to velocity, which is more than you would typically see, and it's the same story with the long barrel. And in my opinion, this is one of the key attachments on the AS VAL, especially considering the fact that we have such a weak range by default. With that long barrel, we can boost this by 50%, whereas most other guns are only seeing about a 25 to maybe 40% improvement. And what this means is our 5-shot kill range is now just about 20 meters, and our 6-shot kill range is like 65 meters, which means you'll almost never run into a 7-shot kill in 6v6 multiplayer, and it'll be a lot easier to stay within that 5-shot kill range. Now, the reinforced barrel is also not terrible. We get a 30% boost to range and velocity, but in my eyes, the long barrel is the clear choice when it comes to the AS VAL. And then finally, let's just have a look at rapid fire, which will reduce our range and velocity values by 10%. Now, of course, I want to take a quick look at hardcore game modes as well, and with the AS VAL, it's only going to be a 1-shot kill to the body in that maximum damage range, so 12.7 meters. Beyond that, it'll be a 2-shot kill to the body, although you can get a 1-shot kill to the head without the CHF barrel in the next damage range, and then after that, in the minimum damage range, you will need the CHF barrel and a headshot if you want to maintain a 1-shot kill. Otherwise, it'll take you 2. Then taking a look at Hipfire, it's pretty much just standard for assault rifles, nothing really out of the ordinary here. And then let's get into our recoil, and honestly, considering the fire rate, the recoil on the AS VAL is not bad at all. It kicks upward with a fairly strong lean to the right for most of the initial shots that you fire, and then it will eventually cut to the left after about 15 rounds fired. But for those first 15 rounds or so, it does have a very consistent and predictable recoil pattern with not a whole lot of jumps between each shot fired, so surprisingly easy to control. Now, if you put the CHF barrel on, this is definitely going to increase that recoil, especially with those initial shots fired, which means, in my opinion, even if you're going for headshots, honestly, I would rather just not use the CHF barrel and maintain that accuracy and have to hit more shots to the head. And then with rapid fire, this does increase our recoil as well, but not as much as the CHF barrel does. But once again, I just don't feel like the benefits with rapid fire are necessary on the AS VAL since it has such a solid rate of fire by default. And this will bring us into our handling stats, and our aim down sight time is very fast for an assault rifle by default at 230 milliseconds, whereas our sprint to fire time is just a little bit better than average for assault rifles, not by a large margin though. It's not a big standout in this area, unlike with our aim down sight time. And when it comes to our slide to fire and dive to fire times, it's just got standard values here at 370 milliseconds and 450 milliseconds respectively. Next up, let's get into our reload times, and it turns out we actually have the fastest reload time in the entire game at 1.08 seconds with the AS VAL if you're using the default magazine. That is insanely fast, and does make up for the fact that it only has a 20-round magazine that you burn through very quickly with the high fire rate. However, we do have 4 different options that can increase our magazine capacity while harming our reload speed to varying degrees. And it's interesting to note here, the flip mag actually increases our magazine capacity, whereas with most guns, it's actually going to be reducing our magazine capacity. And on top of that, I do want to point out, for all of the extended mag attachments, while the bigger the magazine, the slower the reload speed you end up seeing, all of those reload speed values are still very reasonable. And in my opinion, the sweet spot is actually extended mag 2 with that 40 round magazine, because a 1.38 second reload speed is still very fast for an assault rifle. And since we do have such a high fire rate, I really like using extended mags on this, despite the fact that we have such a fast reload time when just using the default 20 round mag. In either case, this brings us to our final set of stats to look at here, and these are our movement speed values, which across the board are right around average for an assault rifle. I was actually a bit surprised to see that these weren't a bit faster with the AS VAL, but overall, it's not like it's terrible in this area, it just isn't really a standout like I thought it might be. And there we go. With all of that out of the way, we can now move into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And it is worth noting, with the AS VAL, we do have an integrated suppressor regardless of the barrel that we're using, and we don't have access to a muzzle section, unlike all of the other assault rifles. But with the first build I wanted to share for you guys, this is just my balanced all-around build. This is kind of my go-to AS VAL build. And with this, we are using that long barrel, which, like I said, is just a key attachment on this because it gives you that massive range boost, and this gun needs as much range as it can get. We're using that extended mag 2 attachment, which, like I said, I think that's just the sweet spot for the magazine on this. We have the CQB grip combined with the Strelic laser, so we get a really fast sprint out time, slide to fire time, and dive to fire time. And then with that Strelic laser, we get near instant full accuracy when we initiate aiming down sight. So our actual aim down sight time doesn't really matter that much with this. So it just gives you a nice balance across the board. And then we're topping that off with the Infiltrator stock, so we can strafe side to side in gunfights a lot more effectively. And that's pretty much it for this build. It's fairly basic. Our recoil doesn't change at all. We don't have any attachments here that impact our recoil. But like I said, the base recoil is quite manageable, at least with this gun, within the ranges you should be using it. It's definitely not a long-range assault rifle by any means. Next up, let's get into my second build, which is my Gunfighter build. And essentially what I'm doing with this one is I'm just building off of the previous setup. I actually have all of the exact same attachments as the previous setup, just because I feel they are best for this gun. But then on top of that, I've added a Kepler Microflex optic, the vertical foregrip to help with horizontal recoil, and the recoil springs to help with recoil across the board. So we've got all of the same stats on this with better recoil control, as we can see here, and an optic on there. Even though the iron sights are great, with Gunfighter, you actually have access to every single attachment slot, so you may as well use it on an optic here. Now, I know it's not super interesting, the fact that that build just shares all of the same attachments as the previous one, but at the end of the day, with the AS VAL, we are fairly limited in our attachment selection, and in my eyes, there are clear winners in each of these attachment slots, and that's why I'm using them. They're just the most effective tools for the job. In saying that though, if you really want to change things up, you can try out my third build here, which is my Tac Stance build. In my opinion, there aren't many guns in this game that really excel with Tac Stance. However, the AS VAL does excel quite a bit due to that higher fire rate. So with this one, we're using the Ranger foregrip primarily for the extra sprint and tactical sprint speed, but we get a little bit of horizontal recoil control there. We have extended mag 3, just because we will be spraying and praying with Tac Stance, of course, so every round we can get in the magazine is going to count. We once again have that CQB grip, so we can come out of sprint nice and quick and get our shots off, while also improving our slide to fire and dive to fire times. And while technically our aim down sight time isn't great with this build, it's like 255 milliseconds, if we're going into Tac Stance, that happens faster than a full aim down sight time. And our Tac Stance aim down sight time is about 230 milliseconds, which is the same as the base aim down sight time with the AS VAL, so not bad there. Then we once again have the Infiltrator stock, and with this one, our Tac Stance aim walking speed is 4.15 meters per second, which is very, very fast. That is going to be faster than if you were fully aiming down sight without Tac Stance. And then, of course, we're topping this off with the tactical laser, which allows us to use Tac Stance, which I think is a little bit unfortunate that you need to use an attachment, but at the end of the day, that's how it works in Black Ops 6. And this is a nice, fun, interesting build to use with the AS VAL if you get bored of using the standard builds that I've already laid out for you guys. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the AS VAL. As for my thoughts on this gun, well, at launch, this gun was incredibly powerful, probably way too powerful. They nerfed it the first time. I thought it was in a pretty good state, but then they nerfed it again. And now, in its current state, I would say it's still very usable. It's not a terrible gun, but it's not great either. It is quite limiting in what you can do with it. You're not going to be nearly as versatile as the other assault rifles. But in saying that, I still have no problem using it. I can still find plenty of success with it, and it's still a fun gun to use. Now, of course, those are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about the AS VAL in those comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.